Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're heading into, well, the rather spooky side of a London icon, the Tower of London. Specifically, we're looking into all those stories about ghosts said to wander its halls.
It's definitely a place that feels heavy with history, doesn't it?
It really does. And we know you want to get the full picture on interesting topics quickly, so this deep dive is all about exploring those spectral tales, using historical accounts, eyewitness reports, really getting into the lore.
And you can see why it has that reputation. Fortress, palace, prison. So many major, often quite grim historical moments happened right there. Executions, imprisonments. It kind of makes sense that ghost stories would pop up.
Exactly. So our mission today, to explore some of the most famous reported ghosts, dig into the stories behind why they might be haunting the place, and just generally get a feel for the tower's spectral side.
We're drawing on a few key sources for this, Secrets Inspectors. The 13 Ghosts of the Tower of London and Tower of London Ghost Sightings, True Ghost Tales. So quite a bit of material to work with.
Okay, let's dive right in. Probably the most famous ghost of the tower has to be Anne Boleyn, right?
Oh, absolutely. Henry VIII's second wife, executed in 1536. She's almost the poster child for tower ghosts. The image people usually think of as her spirit, headless.
Yeah, carrying her head under her arm. It's such a strong, really tragic image.
It really is. And it's captured imaginations for, well, centuries.
And the sightings, they seem to happen in quite a few different spots.
That's right. Reports mention the Chapel of St. Peter at Vincula, that's the tower's church, where she's actually buried, along with many others executed there.
Makes sense.
But also in the corridors, along the parapets, even out on Tower Green itself, which is, the actual spot where she was executed.
It's like the key locations from her final days.
Exactly. The chapel, her resting place, the corridors she walked as queen, then as prisoner, and Tower Green, the end point. It's almost like the emotional weight of it all is still there.
There's that one story from 1864, I think, about a soldier.
Ah, yes. That's a striking one. Near the lieutenant's lodgings. He supposedly saw a white figure, challenged it.
Standard procedure.
Right. No response, so he thrust his bayonet, and it just went straight through. No resistance at all. Imagine being that soldier.
Terrifying. And you think about her life, that rapid rise to queen, then the equally fast, brutal fall. It makes her unforgettable, historically speaking.
And maybe spectrally, too. Some reports mention feeling a sudden coldness when she's supposedly near, or even hearing the rustle of silk, like her gown.
I read something about a tear on her cheek that never falls.
Yes, that detail comes up. A really potent image of, eternal sorrow.
Okay, so moving from probably the most famous, what about the White Lady? She seems a bit more mysterious.
She does, yeah. Unlike Anne, there's no definite historical person attached, which adds to the intrigue. She's mainly seen in the White Tower, the oldest part of the whole fortress.
But there's that detail about her waving at children sometimes. That sounds less menacing.
It does, yes. Slightly gentler touch compared to some others. But the key thing people report is this really strong, lingering perfume. It's like her signature scent, apparently.
And just described as a figure in white.
Pretty much. You see that white figure motif a lot in ghost stories, don't you? Could mean mourning, purity, or just being sort of stuck. For the listener, I think the mystery is the draw. Who was she? Why was she there? We just don't know.
Right. Okay, next. This one's really sad. The Princes in the Tower.
Oh, definitely one of the most heartbreaking stories connected to the tower. Edward V and his younger brother Richard, Duke of York, sons of Edward V.
Teachers vanished, while supposedly under the care of their uncle, Richard III.
Exactly. And the ghosts are seen as these small, frightened, shadowy figures, often holding hands.
Yeah.
Just a picture of lost innocence.
And then they found those bodies, didn't they, in the 17th century? Believed to be them, but it's still not absolutely confirmed, is it?
No, it's still technically an unsolved mystery. Which just adds to it. There are even modern claims like a psychic medium, Christine Hamlet, who believes she's contacted them, maybe even has photos.
Wow, so the story keeps evolving.
It does. But the classic sightings are in the Bloody Tower, these little figures in white nightgowns, hand in hand. It's just incredibly sad.
Yeah, you can imagine people reporting hearing things too, like footsteps or...
Faint sounds of play, yeah. Little footsteps, like echoes of children who should have grown up there.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Another pretty grim end. The Countess of Salisbury, Margaret Pole.
Ah, yes. Her execution in 1541 was, well, let's just say it didn't go smoothly.
That's putting it mildly, wasn't it? The executioner was inexperienced.
That's the account. It apparently took multiple blows. A truly horrific death. and that seems to be what lingers.
So the haunting is more auditory. Screams.
Primarily, yes. There's a specific account from 1975. People in the Waterloo block, which overlooks Tower Green where she died, heard piercing screams early one morning. And guards in the Byward Tower heard them too.
And they couldn't find any source for it.
Nothing. A few nights later, another guard on patrol near there heard the same thing just before dawn. High-pitched screams. It's really chilling, the idea of those sounds echoing through time.
Definitely. It makes the brutality very real.
Yeah.
Okay, who's next? Lady Jane Grey.
The 9 Days Queen. Another incredibly tragic figure, executed when she was only 16.
Just a teenager caught up in those Tudor power games.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So her ghost is seen as this pale, sad figure, often spotted around the anniversary of her execution, almost like she's still mourning that incredibly brief reign.
And wasn't there a story from the 1920s about a house built where she used to live?
Yes, that's right. A resident and her friends supposedly saw the face of a young girl looking out of a window late at night. They searched the house, found no one, just these fleeting glimpses.
It really emphasizes how young she was. Such a waste.
Absolutely. A stark reminder of the human cost behind all the politics.
Okay, let's jump forward quite a bit in time, to World War II, actually. Joseph Jacobs.
The German spy. Executed by firing squad in 1941. And he holds the rather grim title of the last person ever executed at the tower.
So, quite recent, relatively speaking, and his ghost is meant to be hiding.
Trying to evade the firing squad is the story. And the actual chair he was executed in, riddled with bolt holes, is apparently still kept within the tower somewhere.
That's intense. And there was something about a dog.
Yeah, a yeoman warder's poodle back in '79. It would apparently always bark and growl at the spot where the firing range used to be. Like it sensed something residual there.
Animals are often said to sense things we don't. Interesting. Okay, back a bit further now. Sir Walter Raleigh.
The famous explorer, courtier, spent a lot of time imprisoned in the tower, particularly in the Bloody Tower.
Multiple times, wasn't it?
Yes. So his spirit is said to linger there. People report feeling a presence, sometimes seeing a figure in Elizabethan clothes.
And he's seen pacing.
Mm-hmm. Moving quietly through the rooms, or walking along the battlements, Raleigh's walk, especially on moonlit nights, like he's still confined, still walking off his imprisonment.
It's quite a poignant image, isn't it? The great adventurer, forever pacing his prison walls.
It really is. His spirit bound to the place that constrained him.
What about Thomas Becket? He's linked to the tower, too.
Yes, the Archbishop of Canterbury. His ghost is associated with the Salt Tower. Reports suggest quite an angry presence, maybe still raging against his violent murder back in the 12th century.
So a very old ghost story, potentially.
Could be one of the oldest.
Yeah.
There's even a tradition that his ghost appeared during the construction of the parts of the tower named after him.
Wow. So his legend is literally built into the walls. That clash between church and state leaving its mark.
Seems like it.
Now, we can't talk about the tower without mentioning the yeoman warders, the beefeaters.
Absolutely. And it's not just the famous prisoners whose ghosts are seen. Apparently, spirits of former warders are also spotted, still patrolling the grounds.
Still on duty.
That's the idea. A sense of duty that lasts beyond death. And interestingly, the current warders themselves are often the ones reporting strange happenings, sometimes even seeing colleagues who have passed away.
That suggests a really deep connection they have to the place.
It really does, like they're part of its fabric, living and spectral.
Okay, another figure connected to tragedy. Lord Guildford Dudley.
Lady Jane Grey's husband. Their fates were tragically intertwined. He was executed shortly after her.
And his ghost haunts the Beauchamp Tower.
That's the story. Seen weeping in his cell. There's an old tale about his ghost shedding spectral tears in the state prison room, mourning Lady Jane.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. Young love destroyed by politics.
Exactly. Their individual hauntings become even sadder when you think of them together.
Now, for something completely different, the tower used to have a zoo, right? A menagerie.
It did. For centuries. Lions, leopards, elephants, even a polar bear that apparently used to fish in the Thames.
Amazing. And that leads to a phantom bear.
Believe it or not, yes. A ghostly bear, particularly near the Martin Tower, where part of the menagerie was housed.
Is there a specific story?
There's a rather dramatic, though unconfirmed, tale of it charging a guard, who then died of fright. More concretely, there was an 1816 report by a sentry of seeing a large black bear near the Martin Tower, which then vanished.
So maybe a residual echo of the real animals?
Perhaps. It's certainly one of the more unusual hauntings. A reminder of that whole other side of the tower's history.
Then there's the Grey Lady. What's her story?
She's intriguing because reports say she's only ever seen by female visitors.
Really? Only women?
Apparently so, and specifically within the Queen's house. That selectivity makes her quite mysterious. Why, just women? We don't know who she was.
That definitely adds to the puzzle. Raises questions about her identity and maybe her connection to women's experiences in the tower.
Now, another royal ghost, Henry VI.
Caught up in the Wars of the Roses. Didn't he die violently in the tower?
Yes, murdered in 1471 while praying at the altar in the king's private chapel in the Wakefield Tower.
And that's where his ghost is seen.
That's right. He supposedly appears right on the last stroke of midnight. Some also report seeing a pale figure wandering nearby between 11 and midnight, sort of building up to it.
Midnight appearances, very classic ghost lore. His turbulent end leaving a mark.
Seems so.
Okay, what about this figure known only as Daniel?
Yeah, he's a bit more of an enigma, sometimes seen in a cloak, apparently. The unsettling part is reports suggest he sometimes physically interacts with people.
Touches them.
Yes, particularly in the White Tower. There's also a quite disturbing account from the 60s or 70s. A sentry down by Water Lane supposedly encountered a headless figure in a cloak.
Headless?
Headless? The experience apparently left the poor man completely incoherent. Physical interaction and headless. It's pretty intense.
Definitely. And the anonymity, just Daniel adds to the creepiness, makes you wonder about more recent tragedies maybe leaving their mark too.
Possibly. Then there's Arbella Stewart.
A cousin of Elizabeth I, imprisoned for marrying without permission.
That's right. King James I imprisoned her in the Tower for marrying William Seymour without royal consent. She died there.
Another sad end. And her ghost haunts the Queen's house.
Yes. There's a description of her appearing quite strangely motionless, just from the waist up, almost like she's trapped within a portrait frame.
Wow, that's a very specific image, like she's still confined, even as a ghost.
A very frozen, poignant image of her imprisonment.
Sir Henry Percy is another one, right? 9th Earl of Northumberland.
Yes, linked to the Martin Tower. Although he died in the Bloody Tower, he spent years imprisoned.
And his ghost continues his routine.
Apparently so. Yeah. He used to take regular walks for exercise along the battlements, the Northumberland Walk. And his ghost is supposedly seen doing the same thing, taking his nightly constitutionals.
Like he's stuck in that loop.
Seems like it. But there are also more menacing reports from the late 19th century. Sentries guarding near the Martin Tower, they started guarding in pairs because they were so scared, reported unseen hands pushing people down the steps.
Okay, so not just pacing, potentially aggressive too.
Adds a darker edge to his story, definitely.
And of course, Guy Fawkes. Has to be mentioned.
Gunpowder plot figure. He didn't die in the tower, but he was brutally tortured there after the plot failed in 1605. Probably on the rack in the White Tower dungeons.
So the haunting is related to the torture.
Yes. People report hearing screams and cries coming from the council chamber in the White Tower. Echoes of his suffering.
Is there a visual sighting too?
There's one particularly vivid anecdote. A warder saw what looks like a roaring fire, and standing by it were two men in like old-fashioned breeches and stockings. One apparently stared right at him. Then the fire vanished, and the normal modern gas fire was just there again.
Whoa. Like a glimpse into the past. Intense.
Really unsettling. The sounds and sights of intense pain lingering.
Okay. Nearly there with the named ones. The monk.
Just known as the monk. Seen in various places apparently, often wearing a brown habit. But he's particularly associated with Thomas's Tower.
And there's a sound associated with him.
Yes, the sound of leather sandals. People report hearing that distinctive slap-slap sound, even in carpeted areas in recent decades, like the 1970s. A very specific sensory detail that makes it stick in the mind.
It really does. As another layer, maybe a forgotten religious connection or tragedy.
Could be. And beyond these named figures, there's this whole category of, well, unknown specters.
Right. You mentioned the faceless woman earlier. Seen by a guard in 1957 at the Salt Tower. Just a blank face.
Utterly blank, according to the report. Really chilling. Could symbolize maybe all the unknown women who suffered and died there?
And the white apparition back in 1864. The one the soldier challenged with his bayonet.
That's another one seen near where Anne Boleyn was executed. And then there are those truly bizarre accounts of funeral processions.
During the World Wars.
Yes, reports seem to increase then. One from WWI is particularly strange. Soldiers at the main gate saw this silent group approaching from Tower Hill. Men in black gowns carrying a sort of stretcher or hurdle with a body on it. And the head was lying beside the body.
Good grief.
They ordered it to halt. It ignored them, passed right through the closed gate, and just vanished. A search found absolutely nothing.
That's deeply weird, and there's something called the nameless thing.
Yes, described as just this petrifying presence that follows guards near the Sallyport entrance from the river, just sheer terror associated with it.
So a real mix of the known and the completely unknown.
Exactly. It suggests the layers of history and tragedy there are incredibly deep. And that wartime increase is interesting too. Maybe heightened tension makes these things more perceptible.
It's all food for thought. And it's interesting that the tower has been a tourist spot since the 1700s. People have been fascinated by these stories for a long time.
Oh, definitely. The history is compelling on its own, but these ghost stories add this whole other layer of intrigue and mystery that draws people in.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it's clear the Tower of London isn't just stone and history books. It's saturated with these powerful stories, these alleged spectral remnants of its often brutal past.
Each ghost story, whether tied to a famous name or an unknown entity, really offers a unique window into the human tragedies and enduring mysteries locked within those walls. It connects us to the past in a very visceral way.
Which brings us to our final thought for you listening. We've heard about so many sightings spanning centuries. What do these persistent legends tell us about how we remember history, especially in places marked by such intense human experience, both good and bad?
Maybe think about which of these stories stuck with you the most. Was it the tragedy of Anne Boleyn or Lady Jane Grey? The mystery of the princess, the sheer horror of the countess's screams?
What does that resonance tell you about the kind of stories that capture our imagination and how we process the weight of the past?
It really makes you think about memory, trauma, and how places can hold on to echoes of what happened there. Makes you wonder what other stories are still whispered by the tower stones.
Definitely something to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the ghosts of the Tower of London. We'll catch you on the next exploration.